Okay, section 9.2 is called characteristics of quadratics. The first characteristic they talk about is zeros, and zeros are actually pretty simple because zeros are the same thing you've always known like a zero to be. It's basically a zero is an x-intercept. So when we're talking about zeros, you can think of that as x-intercepts. So a zero, because quadratics look like this. Sometimes a quadratic is going to have two zeros. It's going to cross the x in two spaces. Or a quadratic might look like this. And it might touch at exactly one spot. So it could have one zero. Also, it could look like that. Again, these are terrible pictures, but you get the idea. Where this one doesn't go through the x-axis at all. So when you're asked to identify your zeros, you're either going to have one, you're going to have 0 or 1 or 2. Those are your options. So again, those are just where it's crossing the x. So if I were to give these some like lines, so I'll try to do one that's a little neater. So let's say this is my graph. And I have this parabola, and I'll put the vertex right here. And it'll cross through there and there. My zeros are where it crosses. So it crosses here and it crosses here. So I would say that my zeros, if you were told to list them, 1, 2, this one would be -3, 0. And this one would be 2, 0. Then there's also something in that section called an axis of symmetry. And your axis of symmetry is just where your picture, like if you were to find your vertex, and let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need it to be like, try to draw this a little better. Okay. The axis of symmetry will always divide your picture in half, and it will always go through the vertex. So axis of symmetry . It's always an equation. So it's always x equals. And it's always x equals whatever the vertex x value is. So if you're able to identify really nice and neat what your vertex x value is, that's your axis of symmetry. The other way you can find this is if you have two zeros and you average them. So let's say I take -3 plus 2, it's -1, and then I divide that by 2, because I'm averaging, so you add them up, divide by 2, you're going to get -1/2. So this -1/2, that is my axis of symmetry, and you would just write it as an equation. X equals -1/2. What else do they talk to you about? They also give you a formula in this section for finding the vertex if you're given an equation. In the last section, you were just identifying the vertex by picking out the highest point or the lowest point, the max or the min. In this section, they actually give you a formula. So remember, quadratics are always written like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The x value of your vertex can be found using this formula, negative b divided by 2a. So this formula right here will give you your x value of the vertex. So let me just give you an example of a problem, and I'll kind of walk you through how to find the vertex. So if you were given y equals negative x squared minus 2x, and they said find the vertex, you're going to first, your a value is a negative 1 because it's the number in front here. Your b value is a negative 2. It's the number in front there. Here, your c value happens to be 0. So you're going to use this formula, this negative b over 2a. It's actually x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b would be 2. And 2 times a is negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. So my x value of my vertex is negative 1. That means my axis of symmetry would be x equals negative 1. Now, as you know, a vertex is a point. So your vertex isn't just negative 1. That is the x value of the vertex. But once you know the x value of the vertex, you can take that answer and just plug it in for x to find your y. So you would go ahead and take y equals negative 1 is just 1. Well, actually here, I'll write it all out because it's 1, it's negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1. Okay, and I'm writing it out because I almost made a really common mistake. This negative 1, order of operations tells you to square that first. So that negative 1 squared is positive 1. Then you put the negative in. So y equals negative 1, because that became positive, and then I made it negative. And then this is plus 2. So y equals 1. So my vertex, this is my axis of symmetry, but my vertex is the point negative 1, 1. And I'll do one more problem like that for you, but that's basically what this section is. So let's say I have y equals 5x squared minus 10x plus 3. And I'm going to use my formula, x equals negative b over 2a. So this is my a, this is my b, this is my c. Negative b would be 10. 2 times a would also be 10. So 1. X equals 1. That is my axis of symmetry. It's also the x value to my vertex. So I already know my vertex is 1 comma something. now I'm just going to plug that 1 in to figure out my something. So I'll have 5 times 1 squared minus 10 times 1 plus 3. Always do your squaring first. 1 squared is 1, then you times it by 5. Minus 10 plus 3, that'd be a negative 5 plus 3, negative 2. So my vertex is going to be 1, negative 2. And that's pretty much it.